Hello again, welcome back. We're going to talk about now kind of people dilemmas. This is an introduction to the first half of the course, right? What do we mean by people dilemmas and what do we mean by career dilemmas? So there are a number of primary dilemmas you face as a new entrepreneur thinking about starting a company. A career dilemma can be many. There can be many of them. You may have a very passionate you may have a lot of passion for your idea, but you may have no experience, and that's a difficult thing to start out with because it's hard to convince people to help you fund your company. Or you may have some personal thing going on in your life that limits you as an entrepreneur. It could be a family situation. Or you might just be ahead of the market. So we'll talk about that briefly in a moment. And then there's the second group of dilemmas we talk about are founding team dilemmas. That is, should I go it as a solo entrepreneur or should I do it with co-founders? And if I decide to use co-founders, how do I decide between responsibilities, roles, and rewards? And then once we get past the co-founding discussion, because even if you don't co-found, if you go it alone, you'll eventually hire people. And you'll have to understand, past the founding team, what issues do you face when you hire new people, when you bring in investors, and then the final aspect of this discussion will be, the kind of the dichotomy of, or almost ironic aspect of being an entrepreneur, and that is, in some cases, the more successful you are, the more likely you are to be replaced. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So here is a graphic, kind of a schematic of kind of the sequence of founding dilemmas. The first question you really ask yourself is, should I found a company? Should I found the company now? And if the answer to that is no, obviously you stay a non-founder. But if the answer to that is yes, then the next question you ask yourself is, should I go it alone or should I bring in some co-founders? If the answer is you want to go it alone, then you kind of skip over the founding team issues because you don't have a team, not a founding team at least. And then you go straight to the discussion of beyond the team, which is hiring people, bringing investors in, and the succession of you as an entrepreneur or CEO eventually in the future. But if you decide to bring in a founding team, then you have to consider the issues of what relationships are you going to draw your team from, which we'll talk about in just a moment. What roles will those people play, and how do you reward them in an equitable way? So when you're thinking about founding a company, there's a number of questions you should ask yourself. The very first question is, should I become an entrepreneur? That may seem like almost obvious, but you should ask yourself that question. Do I have the type of personality and capability to actually become an entrepreneur? If the answer is yes, then the next question is, when should I do it? Should I do it early in my career, or should I do it after I've got some experience working in the business world? And what's really important is passion sometimes overtakes logic, and you need to have a dispassionate evaluation of the idea you have, and we'll help you think about that and ask some questions about how you can dispassionately evaluate your idea. These are all complex questions that mix your career, your personal life, and market issues, which we can show in this schematic, okay? So we have personal circumstances, meaning, do you have a motivation to be an entrepreneur? Do you have a family which will support you in that task? Have you grown up with positive role models, like your parents were entrepreneurs or your parents own their own businesses? And do you have enough cash to be able to start into a new company, because you're not going to be earning a big salary as an early stage entrepreneur? So those are the personal circumstances. Then you have career issues, right? And that is basically what experience do you have? Do you have work experience that's relevant to your idea? Is that experience broad or is it deep? Meaning, are you a generalist or are you a specialist? And what's the opportunity cost of you leaving your current job, if you have one, to start your own company? And then some companies, as you go through a corporate environment, you'll get what they call golden handcuffs. These are things that keep you kind of handcuffed to the company. They can be things as simple as stock option plans. They can also be, profit sharing plans, that kind of thing. Maybe even some type of a payment to keep you involved in the company. So we'll talk about that. And if those change, that could have an impact on your decision. And then the final one is, are you fit to found the company? And that's basically the conclusion we come to once we look at this career circumstances. And then the final one is market. People want to, investors want to invest in large markets. So you must have an opportunity which is big enough to bring some serious investors to you to help you fund the company. And, you have to understand, like, is the time such that we need to get started because we have a ticking clock? So we'll go through all of these things. So, as I said before, if you have positive role models in your life, they have a big influence on you when you think about becoming a founder. Like, did you have a family that owned a business versus worked for a large corporation? Do they value entrepreneurs? Some families do not. They'll just simply say, go find a corporate job. You'll be much more safe. You'll have much more longevity, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, that's not so true anymore, but people still believe that. And, were your parents self-employed? If they were, you probably grew up in an environment which basically valued being an entrepreneur. So when you think about this, your core motivations, it provides a better complete picture of whether or not you actually should found or not found a company.